Karen, I want to thank you for sitting down with us at the Delaware Business Times to talk a bit about captive insurance in Delaware. Captives are an area that I've not read a lot about, but captives are an area that seem to be growing. So appreciate you taking some time to talk about this.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Why have captives, seemingly in a short period, become such a big thing in Delaware? Why Delaware for captive insurance?
Well, that's very interesting because when I brought it up in the beginning, people thought it would be a joke because Vermont's been out there for a really long time. And actually, Delaware passed captive legislation during David Elliott's time, which,
right,
as we know, was quite a long time ago, because Hercules wanted to expand in the captive market. But they did end up going to Bermuda at that time, even after we did pass the legislation. And the other insurance commissioners prior to me, most of them weren't that interested in it. Matt Denn did have some interest in it. So we did change the legislation in 2005 to make it more modern. And then when I came in as commissioner, I really felt that it would really benefit Delaware on several levels. One is because the holding companies are here. And if Delaware, which I think of as a global, world global for corporations, that we're just so large, that it gives you one-stop shopping. Because we already have the corporate lawyers here. We have the great court system here, our Chancery Court. We have great body of laws and legislation, particularly our corporate legislation. And our captive law is really a licensing mechanism that sits over the chassis of our corporate law, so they tie together. So basically, we had all the tools. Our location is great, believe it or not, because Philadelphia has a daily flight from Bermuda, which may sound odd, but for Bermudian companies, it's really convenient. Brings in a lot of other people from overseas into 20 minutes from Delaware into the Philadelphia airport. And the train system, which gets people here from the New York offices within 90 minutes, is also great for captives. So I just kind of had a feeling that because of the corporate identity here, actually Delaware gets business. We are the one state that gets business.
Well, that kind of brings me to the idea or the question of what is the art of doing a captive? What makes it special? And if captives are a creation of government, why are not all the other states doing them?
Well, the other states are doing them. They're trying to copy what Delaware did. We now have 40 jurisdictions in the United States that are trying to copy and capture what Delaware did. But the problem is what made Delaware able to do what we did. Now, it took Vermont 25 years to grow, to be anywhere near our size. It took us less than 5 years, but we already have the Chancery Court. They don't have the Chancery Court, so it was Woodrow Wilson, when he was governor of New Jersey, that changed the laws on trust that made the companies come to Delaware, and then Delaware, the legislators from that period of time went ahead and started putting the Chancery Court. We put in laws, regulations, and captured corporations as a way of life for here in Delaware. The corporate lawyers that are here are unbelievable. Delaware's bar is one of the hardest bars to pass in the United States. And most students, when they're learning law, that part of corporate law, no matter what law school they're going to, it's going to include Delaware law. So we are a leader in laws. We're for corporations, so this really is a corporate hub.
Well, are you saying then that it's the creation of the legal entity and the management of the legal entity that is the art of captive insurance?
It's one of the leading arts. The other is that we have an elected insurance commissioner, which gives stability. The most that an appointed commissioner lasts in office is only about 18 months. But in Delaware, we elect our commissioners, as do 12 states, and that gives you stability in the regulatory field. But also because we do have this stability in our regulatory field by having an elected commissioner, it also gives more stability to everything else that's in Delaware and to our General Assembly. And the fact that our General Assembly is small and they get business also helps to add. So it's a host of things that come together. I have 25 years experience in insurance, and because of that, I knew in order to do captives right when I came in, I needed to roll it into a bureau so I could remarket it to roll it out from when I worked my days at Marsh. And I also brought in talent. Delaware has expensive, knowledgeable talent. Steve Kenyon is named as one of the 50 most powerful persons in the United States, if not globally, for captives. And he was formerly the general counsel and deputy commissioner in Oklahoma. Has very bright, very intelligent person. And he also has a master's degree in finance and a law degree. So bringing him in, even though it was expensive, he was able to talk with his finance background from having a master's in finance and to be able to put that across to the people we were trying to market. Plus, I gave up 2 days a week to travel around the country to use my Rolodex that I had developed prior to Marsh and continued to develop while I was working for Marsh.
What, Karen, what is the federal interest in captives? Captives end up being a vehicle, of course, to save taxes and a variety of other things. So I know they attract some federal interest.
Well, there really hasn't been that much in federal interest in captives. Actually, the more important thing that captives do is they allow large businesses to be able to segment their risks where they have trouble getting coverage, and it helps them to manage their risk better. So it's mostly in the property casualty side where you weren't able to get certain coverages, that you were able to set up a captive, which is your own insurance company, to be able to put premium in for that rainy day that something might happen. And then if nothing happens, then you're able to dividend back up to the holding company the money that's left in the captive. What's happened more recently is the life insurance companies are using captives. The regulators throughout the country, the insurance regulators, are now realizing that the reserves we are requesting them to hold are redundant. It's been proved through different studies. So as the United States regulators from all over the country are changing our laws to allow PBR for reserving, the insurance companies that have these huge redundant or excess reserves are putting them into captives, which I like as a regulator because I particularly came from the insolvency world. And they usually use those captives to put in what we call a runoff book of business or a closed block of business, depending on what industry of insurance you're in. And those blocks have no new premium coming in, but they're being run off. And we're able to watch what is happening to those particular blocks of business that tend to be risky as they're winding down. We now have a tool by using a captive that we can watch it closer.
Let me ask you, when you look at captive insurance and you look at the regulatory role that you play as an insurance commissioner, to what extent do Delawareans have a regulatory interest in captives? To what extent is it significant? And how do other states handle their regulatory scrutiny of captives?
Well, we have a really good group of people, and we have a lot of experience in regulating these types of entities and an understanding, because Delaware is now the 10th largest state, not for captives, but on the traditional side. So we have been a leader for decades on the insurance side, and taking that expertise, because some of our other insurance states do not have the number of insurance companies incorporated in their state. So we have a much larger, more complex, and we also oversee a number of multinational companies. So it really gives us an expertise. So most other states don't have the infrastructure that we have in Delaware. So we understand Canadian law and what the regulator requires in Canada, for instance. The same with Germany and France. We have these companies in Delaware.
When you look, Karen, at the growth, the dramatic growth of captive insurance companies, is there a win-lose scenario? Is there anyone who is being disadvantaged by the growth of captives?
No, not really. Actually, it's a benefit because it benefits self-insureds. Large companies like, say, DuPont or Coca-Cola or Pepsi. It allows them to be able to manage the risk in a very responsible way and to be able to segment risks so that one risk can be handled differently than another risk that they may identify in the way that they're managing the company. So it gives them a better way of managing their company. It also brings in more competition. It also relieves the marketplace itself, not captives, but the insurance marketplace, from give it more competition and also allow it to price products more appropriately.
Well, is the growth, though, occurring more in the larger entity like the Fortune 1000, or is the growth occurring more in larger sized, closely held, family-owned businesses?
Well, there's many different types of captives. We see a lot of it in the large Fortune 500 companies, which helps us as regulators to see where their money, if they're reserved, because since they are self-insured, we don't really see what they reserve or what they have out there. So by having a captive, we're able to look at that better.
Right.
But we also are looking at now at mid-sized companies are now starting to be able to enter the captive market. Now they can also have, we have industrial type captives and agency captives, and we also have association captives, so you can get a number of groups together, and that helps them to be able to have a larger purchasing power.
When you look at risk areas, P&C, property and casualty, health, liability, all of product liability, all of that kind of stuff, are there areas that are growing in captives like healthcare or P&C? Where is the growth occurring?
Right now, it seems to be on the life side, but we still do see your traditional marketplace from companies managing their risk. A lot of hospitals have captives because they have a lot of different types of risks. So they do tend to have captives with what we call protective cells attached to them. But right now I see the growth more in the insurance field.
So are we seeing captives as well, when you mention hospitals, in the nonprofit side as well as the for-profit side?
Yes. It helps them to control their expenses and to manage their risk. That's the real beauty of a captive, is managing your risk and being able to segment it into compartments.
Tell me a little bit about Delaware's captive industry. And by that I'm talking about accounting firms, law firms, captive managers, insurance brokers. Let's kind of start with the sell-in of captives. Who does, where does a captive start? Who's selling it in? Who's making it all happen?
We do have captive managers that are licensed in Delaware or certified. They're all over the country. In fact, they're all over the globe. And they tend to work with their clients to pick a particular jurisdiction that, by word of mouth, Delaware has received accolades being named the captive onshore domicile last year, which we received an award for. So, and we already had a great reputation in the insurance industry from the traditional side. So people expected, which we did deliver on our captive side, the same type of regulatory environment on the captive side as we do on the traditional side.
Well,
So our growth is coming from our traditional side, and that reputation is helping to fuel our reputation on the captive side.
Well, what does a captive manager do? I mean, for somebody who's unfamiliar with this, what kind of work is a captive manager doing?
Well, they're going to act, they may do your claims for you. They will help you with your business plan. Like Coca-Cola, for instance, I can say Coca-Cola because they've made it public that they have a captive here.
Right.
Normally we can't make things public who has a captive here. Well, they may do it in-house because they have a risk manager, but if you don't have a risk manager and you want to start a captive, you need tools. You need to have claims adjusters. You need to have people how to write your business plan. You need to put your finances together. You need an actuary. So your captive manager either has people they're associated with, have them in-house, so they'll do almost your back room for you.
Now, what when you look at captives in Delaware and this captive industry, we have accounting firms that have grown up. What are they doing? What are the law firms doing?
The law firms are receiving a lot of clients, and luckily our captive growth can't coincide with their business going away on the bankruptcy side.
Right.
And the uptick in the captives enabled a number of law firms to retain some of their lawyers and also to add more lawyers.
And what kind of work are they doing? Are they doing entity creation?
They're doing the corporate part. They're doing filing the papers with the Secretary of State's office, filing with my office. They're doing the regulatory. And all insurance companies, whether you're a captive or a traditional insurance company, you're going to have compliance issues. So they are also working on the compliance issue part for captives as well as they are for the traditional insurance companies. And our traditional insurance company have been growing here in Delaware also.
So when we look at what these industries are that are growing, what about accounting firms? We have several accounting firms that are starting to do more. Are they doing P&Ls and balance sheets? Are they working on actuarial matters? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you're absolutely right. The accounting firms are really needed to do not only the profit and loss statements, but also to do the financial statements that the companies have to file with the regulator every year. And the life insurance companies have to file quarterlies, and then the large blue book, well, we call blue book, but they're large life insurance books. So there is a lot of work for the accountants to do, and it's been helping them to add more employment to their accounting firms.
Let's talk about when people think of insurance, they think of insurance salesmen, they think of the brokers. How is that industry being affected? How is that changing in business insurance and so on with captives being created to help handle the risk and the reserves?
Well, the broker plays a very important part, such as Aon and Marsh and a number of the other companies that are brokers. They have the clients, and they start to see in the marketplace, because when a client, say a Coca-Cola, goes in to see their broker, the broker looks at what all their risks are, and then they start to tell their client the best way that they should approach insuring their risk, which could include setting up a captive, because it may be a certain risk that would be better off because it's so hard to buy in the marketplace and maybe so expensive that it'd be better if they split it off and insured it separately.
When we get to who should be a captive, one of the numbers that I've heard is if you're looking to set up a captive, you should be paying in the range of $1 million a year in premium or larger, not smaller. Is that pretty accurate?
Right. We've had people ask about employment-type captives, and we tell them you need at least 1,000 employees if you're going to look at something to do with health or some portion thereof, so that you do need to have quite a bit of money you're paying out in premium to make it worth your while.
And that $1 million figure is a reasonable figure.
It's abstract. I'm not sure if that's exactly, I think it's just a number being thrown out there. It can vary.
How many jobs do you think we have created in Delaware that we support? I mean, are we talking 100 jobs, 250, more?
To me, it would be very hard to say because we've only been really in this for about 5 years now. It was 5 years in August. And we know there's a lot of jobs coming in, but the other issue we have is that since we've gotten so much press and so much notoriety on captives, it's been bringing in a lot of the traditional companies coming in, which we may be getting more jobs on that, which is only a result of the fact that there's so much discussion about Delaware and its captives. It's keeping us in everybody's view. So I do know on the traditional side in particular, jobs have been coming in great numbers.
Yeah. For someone who wants to learn more about captive insurance in Delaware, where could they go?
The Delaware Captive Bureau has a website. It's captive.delawareinsurance.gov. And Jamie Bufundo is our office manager. You can reach her via phone at area code 302-577-5280 or jamie.bufundo@state.de.us. Again, the website is captive.delawareinsurance.gov.
All right. Karen, I think that takes care of me. I just thank you very much for
You're
your time.
welcome.
I wish you
Thank you.
continued best wishes in all
Thank you.
this. Thank you.
Very much.